It is the dawn of the 6th of June 1944. In front of the beaches of Normandy, the largest amphibian invasion in history just materialized under the eyes of the astonished defenders. On board of the ships, ready to assault the beaches, there are quite a few of Allied divisions, including the 3rd and the 50th British Infantry Division, the 3rd Canadian Infantry Division, the 79th British Armored Division, and the 1st, 4th and 29th American Infantry Divisions. During the night, the 6th British Airborne Division, the 101st and the 82nd American Airborne Divisions have also landed a few miles from the coast to protect the beachheads. Waiting for them, defending the Atlantic Wall fortifications, there are the German infantry divisions numbered 352, 709 and 716. The 91st Airborne Division plus the Infantry Division 243 and 711 are in adjacent areas. So, there were a lot of divisions in Normandy that day, but what is a division? I am the Crow. Welcome to Millennium 7. In this series, we will be telling the history of the division as a fighting unit. This will be a three-part series. In the first episode, we will cover the 18th and the 19th century. In the second episode, we will cover the two world wars. And in the third episode, we will cover the post-war period till the present day. Before getting started, please like, dislike, subscribe and share with your friends on social media, because I need your support to keep going and improving. Otherwise, if you think that this channel should be shut down and its memory erased from Google's cache, well, then just do nothing. It's your call. But now, let's get started. Our story begins on the 5th of November 1757. On the hills around the village of Rossbach, in central Germany, the Prussian troops of the King Frederick II are preparing to fight a multinational French and Imperial army under the command of the Prince von Hildburghausen. The battle will be one of the great Prussian successes in the 7 Years' War, but what we are actually interested in is the Prussian order of battle. If we look closely at it, we see a first and a second line with their own commanders, together with a left wing, a center and a right wing, with their own commanders too, and also separate commands for cavalry and artillery. The base unit is the battalion, of 500 or 600 men. Battalions are grouped in regiments or brigades of 3 to 5 battalions, but above that level there's no permanent grouping. In terms of chain of command, what seems important is the placement of the troops on the battlefield, and all the troops placed in a certain area are also placed under the same commander. The idea of right, center and left of the army, which goes back to the antiquity, is still in use. And for completeness, the organization of the Imperial and French forces is no different. A French officer who took part in the battle, Victor François de Broglie, may have pondered about this organization. Later in the war, he will propose the idea of the division, and apparently, during the remainder of the 7 Years' War, he managed to conduct some isolated experiments. His ideas won't go unnoticed. 35 years later, in 1793, another Frenchman enters the scene, Lazare Carnot, a military engineer and a revolutionary politician, is put in charge of organizing the new French Revolutionary Army. The year before, at Valmy, the ragtag French force defeated the armies of the First Coalition, stopping the invasion of France. However, the situation is still dire, with France isolated and in collision course with practically the whole of Europe. Carnot will have to take some extreme measures and introduce innovation in the attempt to fend off the enemies. Among other innovations, Carnot formalizes for the first time the existence of the division. No longer commands created on the fly before the battle, divisions become semi-permanent units, created for the duration of a campaign or even for longer, with a territorial base commanded by a general of division with a proper staff and including a squadron of cavalry, a battery of artillery and other support units. This is the first time that the key element that distinguished the division from anything else in existence before was adopted on a large scale. The division from now on is a large permanent unit with a permanent commander and, crucially, a mix of units of different arms. It will be a success. 3 years later, the order of battle of Napoleon at the beginning of the campaign of Italy includes no less than 9 infantry divisions, well, not all efficient, and 2 cavalry divisions. By integrating artillery and cavalry into the divisional structure, the French achieved greater firepower and reconnaissance capacity at a lower organizational level. Divisions could march divided, engage the enemy, and have enough support for a short period until reinforced by other divisions. The principle is often cited as march divided and fight united. At the Battle of Marengo, the 14th of June 1800, this principle will be spectacularly demonstrated when General Desaix's division will save the day, reaching the battlefield in time to avert the French defeat and turn it into a resounding victory. The large size of the French revolutionary armies also required an appropriate density of commanders to be controlled. The organic unit on the battlefield was still the battalion, and every demi-brigade, which was basically a regiment with a different name, had 2 or 3 battalions. Every brigade had 2 or 3 demi-brigades. Every division had 2 or 3 brigades. Every commander now has only 2 or 3 units to take care of. He can focus on executing only one main mission with his forces. In this way, the chain of command is very simplified and the command action more focused on the essential tasks. Napoleon will take this approach up one notch, creating the army corpses. Each corps had 2 or more infantry divisions, a light cavalry division, various heavy artillery batteries, and support units. It was a true army, potentially capable of engaging a superior force and win, applying fire, maneuver, and shock as needed. The campaign of 1806 against Prussia will demonstrate how this approach was going to provide a decisive advantage on the battlefield, with the French army being able to easily manage the double battle of Jena-Auerstedt and score again a resounding victory. What were the other armies doing in the same period? The organization was still the one typical of the 18th century, with no permanent unit above the regiment or brigade level. These armies used to move as a single monolithic unit, often in a long and slow column along the roads. This approach overburdened the general staff and made the whole army slow and hardly capable of reacting to the changing conditions of the campaign or on the battlefield. It took a decade of defeats for European armies to adopt the French innovations and, among those, a different organization of their forces, including the division level. In the relatively peaceful years after the Napoleonic Wars, all the main European armies reformed their organizations according to the lessons learned. A good example is the Piedmont's army, which fought the first 2 wars of the Italian independence in 1848 and 1859 with an organization based on 5 numbered infantry divisions. Probably, the army which applied the new organizational principle more thoroughly was the Prussian army. Numbered divisions and brigades became the norm after the Napoleonic Wars with the reform of 1818. They were formed as permanent units, headquartered in a specific place with a commander permanently assigned. At the beginning of the War of 1870, a typical Prussian infantry division included 2 infantry brigades of 2 regiments each, 1 battalion of Jägers, the Prussian light infantry, 1 regiment of light cavalry, either hussars or dragoons, 4 division artillery batteries, and 1 or 2 pioneer companies with entrenching equipment. This is already a modern-looking organization, and it will prove to be vastly successful in the coming war. It is interesting to note that the banner organization was pushed to the extreme in this case. 2 regiments made a brigade, 2 brigades made a division, and incidentally 2 divisions made a corps. This kind of organization is often also called a square division, alluding to the fact that at regimental level the division had 4 units to maneuver. Not all the armies adopted this square organization. For example, an Austrian army corps in 1866 was composed by 3 or 4 infantry brigades, usually named after their commander, with no division level. Anyway, despite some exceptions, the square division was adopted by many European armies, and this organization model will last until the beginning of the First World War. But this is the subject of the next episode. So, thanks for watching, and good night.